Cecilia, so nice to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Max. Likewise, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're one of the toughest introduction I ever had to think about because you are a civil economic. You have 2 master's degrees in finance. You have 3 kids, right? Yes. In addition to being the super serious background, you're also a stand-up comedian and you're doing lectures and keynote speakers. You've been on TEDx. So I was a bit like, wow, where do we start?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
really cool because it shows that, yeah, serious people can also be funny.
exactly. Or, and
Kind of.
vice versa. Funny people can
Vice
also have a
versa.
brain.
So what topic do you speak on? Like, why do businesses book you? What's the return of investment after you've been on stage?
So basically, I haven't been in that game for so long. I have a lecture called Champagne and Brown Cheese. It's kind of underline both of my cultural background. I am a French woman who's lived in Norway now for more than 15 years. So most of my adult life is in Norway. And with that title, I approach different topics, but most of it is how to build a good working culture across differences. Most of the time, it's about cultural differences. For example, companies having employees from different countries. Sometimes it's about companies about to expand outside their usual Norwegian borders. But more and more, it's also companies that want to build that kind of good working culture to get on board with people having different background. And it's not necessarily people coming from the other side of the world. Sometimes it's just, for example, different functions or a merger. And then people need to kind of build this common working culture. So I use this champagne and branches as a backbone to address that kind of different topics. So everything towards inclusion, which has also been a bit less popular since Trump has been back in the US, and or different topics like working culture across functions, for example.
Cool. Yeah, I saw you live. We were both MCs on WOW conference. It was so fun when you used humor to introduce everyone. It was really cool to see you on stage. Talking about stages, like we have the same agent, Nils, amazing. But how do you get most of your gigs today? Is it referral? Do you do some outreach, agent?
Yeah, good question. For now, it's through this common agent we have called Talerlisten. They are the one to have kind of pushed my name to most of their customers. So it's been a very fun journey with them. Especially the last 12 months have been busy now. So, and of course, I think Norway is a small country. At least that's where I operate the most. And here what Norwegian called jungle telegraph, which is fun because there's neither jungle nor telegraph in Norway, has been working very well. So people like word of mouth has been very helpful, but it's always almost through Talerlisten.
Cool. And are you full-time now or part-time? How is your speaker life?
Yeah, I quit my corporate job. I used to work as a CEO for a small beauty company in Norway, which I quit that job like almost 3 years ago, and has been living as a freelancer, both as a comedian and as a lecturer ever since.
Nice. And for lectures, like, what's your average rate? To like, all people always curious.
So 35,000 kroners, and you asked me to do the price in euros, so it would be a bit above 3,000.
3,000 euros. Yeah, cool. How do you open up your talk? Like, when you go on stage, what's your opening line?
I've tried many things. I was very exciting to see your questions because I have both this kind of schizophrenic approach. I have both the analytic background and the corporate background, which I think you need to start seriously to build the confidence. But my experience now is that the best way to start is with a joke. And that's a hard one because how can you tell what kind of humor will land with that crowd on that day? So, but I always now start with something like a question, and the answer is either like ha 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 or just people smiling. But at least I made that smile and I signalized the fact that here it's going to be not super intense. It's going to be a little bit entertaining. However, the messages are there. So always with a joke.
Okay, cool. And how do you close it?
Like, what's at the end of the talk with another joke. So that's
so that's how you close it.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so let's jump into like today's episode is about humor, and there's so much science done that when people are having fun, they learn much better. So I encourage all speakers to use humor, but other people are afraid. So if a speaker has one talk that they delivered 50 times, how can they now take 2 steps back and add humor to it? What would you recommend as a stand-up comedian who writes your own jokes?
Well, at least I think most comedians ask a friend, ask a comedian, or ask someone else to just run through and have a second opinion. Because when you've done it 50 times, sometimes it's hard to know where exactly you could put any more. I'd say the first recommendation is that usually you yourself know when you start losing a bit the crowd, where the energy is going down, or where usually you know the part you like the less in your talk and the part you like the most. So I would address the one you like less and try to pimp it up with something funny that you enjoy yourself. At the moment, if you on stage is having a good time, it's extremely contagious for the audience.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Find the most boring part and make it spicy.
Yeah, or like the down point where perhaps it's something that you burn for, because some people are very experts and they need to go in something that can be a bit dry seen from the outside. So even though for you it's an important point, you should not kill it. Just for the dramaturgy, in a way, it's like a theater play. Add something fun at the end that would surprise people and just make sure that you wake everybody up in the room.
Cool. I work with some speakers who just say to me, like, I'm not naturally funny. I'm a serious person. I still encourage them to try to be, make people at least smile. But what type of humor works best for speakers who don't see themselves as naturally funny? Let's say by that.
So I think it's very important to be yourself on stage. Like if you are pushing a joke you didn't write yourself or you didn't like yourself, it's hard to make it land. So I said, my first advice is like, trust your compass, your inner compass, not to pretend to be someone you're not. However, I mean, you don't need to be hilarious to be fun. I mean, especially if the talk is, some people talk about, either very like factual things or very emotional things that can be sometimes a bit draining for the audience. So that the elements that gonna be make the audience laugh is not necessarily like a best joke on earth. It just can be like just a side comment or something that you always think about when you do that part. Sometimes it's just like being, just like comment yourself on stage. That can be a very funny thing to say. It's like, yeah. And on that slide, yeah, I blah, blah, blah. And then you can just like do something that puts you also in a vulnerable position. Could be also something that is extremely funny, especially Norwegians have a great sense of self-irony, I believe.
Yeah, for example, I talk very fast and I try to talk slower, but in the middle of my presentation, and this was a joke actually I think Niels came up with. I just have a big slide and it just says like brief. And I look at it, I'm like, to the audience, hey, this is not for you guys, it's for me. And I go like, I know I speak fast, I'm trying. And then we go and they laugh and, it's kind of using your weaknesses to attract.
Exactly. And that makes you so sympathetic because we understand you've got the feedback before and you're doing something with it. And that's kind of a perfect example of, it's not hilarious, but that's very funny because you own it on stage, right?
But like, okay, so I'm not naturally funny. I want to add some humor. I identified the most boring part of our presentation. So what's next step? Do I take a note and paper?
Yes.
Do I watch Seinfeld? Like, what do I do?
I have like tips and tricks. I think you can, first of all, you can open it, for example, on your private life. I give you an example. If someone talks about the importance of leadership, just having like a cute example of, this is why I tried with my dog or with my kids and they blah, blah, blah. It doesn't need to be like hilarious, but it's just cute. And then somehow you can also like put a picture, for example, of something that is more into your personal bubble. That would be also, I think, something that is a bit cute and humoristic without being like, that doesn't make you a stand-up comedian. Some people use prompts on stage. I think that's also interesting. Maybe we could be a bit more creative, we Norwegians, to have like simple like tricks to do something funny. Give you an example, having like, again, like putting confettis on stage. Well, it's just, I'm throwing examples. It doesn't need to be like crazy stuff, but, or having like a paper where it says applause in the inside of your jacket.
Yeah. Oh, I like that one. I like that one. Or like laughter, applause. Yeah.
Yeah. And something very stupid and innocent can be also like a good like tricks to rely on, or something musical also could be like just having a musical, just a few seconds of a song. Or I think people love to see the audience somehow, even if it's a corporate audience, they love to see people fail. It's not the mean way. It's just the human way. So showing that you're not Iron Woman or Iron Man is always a good thing.
I just had a podcast with Ola, who speaks about creativity, and he opens up, like you said, with personal, and he talks about his daughter not being creative, and everybody like, what? So, and he makes something funny out of it. So, it can be crazy. How do you test like new humorous moments in low risk way before using them on a big stage? Like, what's the best way to test something?
Yeah, that's a good question. The thing is with humor, it's very empiric, right? You need to test in front of the audience to know, does it land or no? And testing in front of one person is not enough. So as a stand-up comedian, I use sometimes the stand-up small, like open mic stages, like, like small, casual, under the radar stages with a little group of audience to test some jokes that I would then, if they land, reuse on bigger stages. But I think the best is to have actually a feedback of someone who has done the game before. You can always ask your husband, your wife, your friend. Somehow, however, they will not be able to think, is this a good joke on a stage, which is not the same as a good joke around a dinner table. So my best advice is test, or ask like a colleague, ask someone at Talent or someone else. Would you
find a speaker and ask? Yeah.
Yeah.
And with new jokes, so like there's two things. Like there's the mentally fear, and then there's the fear of being on stage. If you look at the mentally fear, like almost every speaker's fear it. What if no one laughs? How should speaker handle this fear mentally?
Yeah, this one is tough because I know in a way I have the relationship with this kind of nervosity, like with the sports people will have with the stress. You need a bit of it to perform the best. At the moment where you enter the stage being completely relaxed and not fearful, you do not deliver your best. However, the fear should not win over your competence to shine bright on stage. So I would say that having a bit of fear is making you best. But my best advice, I will give you some tricks, some dirty tricks from stand-up comedy.
Okay.
In comedy, there's something called crowd work. It's very much this ability of entering the stage and immediately read the crowd. Understand who are the people that are going to be perhaps your go-to people during the talk. So if you have like a callback to someone in the audience who says like, we've prepared this talk and I talked with your colleague Hanne. And Hanne, she talks very warmly about you. However, she's wondering who never pays for the wine lottery. I don't know, something like that. Like having a joke that talks about the customer is always better than having your own joke. Because you never know the DNA of the company you go to. But if you, however, have jokes in the crowd that will land towards the crowd and even like put the crowd in the middle of the attention, that's always the best.
I really like that. That's really cool. I also say to people like, look, no, like the cool thing is like, you're not doing stand-up, you're doing public speaking and nobody expects you to be funny. So best case, they laugh. Worst case, you just told a fact. But
no, exactly. And I think you should respect that. I mean, somehow, exactly. You should respect the expectation of the audience. And when the audience expects someone to come to talk about, I mean, among our colleagues, we have like very brainy and knowledgeable experts about a lot of different topics. They're not here to be clown, right? So obviously you would like to have perhaps a bit of a note of something a bit cute or humoristic. But when you talk about psychologically safety or psychological health or risk in terms of crisis, of course you can always find some jokes, but exactly the expectation is not there. So don't be too hard on yourself. One or two small jokes is enough.
And what do you do? Like if you're on stage and nobody laughs, like in that specific moment, how do you not lose it? Don't get stressed. And you did a joke, you tried to do a joke and nobody laughed. And you have still 20 minutes left of your presentation. How do you psychologically handle it?
A part of me would like to say that never happened, but that's happened to me a lot of times.
Same.
So here what I do is when I'm in a good day, I breathe, I continue. And sometimes if you really like it's like you are like prepared for an exercise, either you have your abs contracted and you are like in mental health. Then sometimes you get out of stage and people are like, this was hilarious. And in your head, you're like, you never made a single noise. Why wouldn't you give me a bit more of energy? If that was so great, give me more. But sometimes, and it happened to me, sometimes it's hard. It's hard because the crowd is not receptive, or people are chit-chatting while you talk, or perhaps the microphone is not good, or even your performance was not good that day. I usually think, okay, you know what? Breathe, continue. But in my head, I'm like, they don't like the joke. They don't like the joke. Yeah. So this is a good joke. Isn't it a good joke? Yeah. Does the microphone work? No, I don't say that. No. But I feel like sometimes it's hard. You go home and you think, that was a very unthankful gig. These happen to all of us.
Yeah. But this is where it gets tricky, and even I'm confused. So how can a speaker tell the difference between a quiet audience and humor that simply didn't land? For example, I just spoke to a very top speaker. He's funny. And he told me he was in Finland and everybody was standing dead serious. He started to sweat because nobody laughed. And in the break, people come to him. You are so funny. This is the most fun speech I ever heard in my life. It was hilarious. And he was like, why didn't you laugh? So when do you know, how can you kind of like, I don't want people to go on stage, do good material, nobody laughed, and they think, I can never be funny. Like, how can you do that? So like, how can you read difference?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I do agree with this because if it's a consolation, I had this exact discussion with people having done stand-up for 20 years. And somehow, even of these people searching to make the audience laugh, sometimes they struggle to find out, do they have a good time? Or is just like, it's like what I do. So my first advice is always like kind of measure at the end of your performance, how was it? It's painful right away after the stage to hear that it was like, it's always a good way to get better. So somehow you should always be modest. But right then, right now on stage. My philosophy is like, you do your best and you're having a good time and you enjoy that. Sometimes I have even like that mantra when I'm getting very stressed because the audience is big and I'm kind of small. I'm not very high. In France, I have felt very average. In Norway, I feel very little very often. You know, even like going at the pharmacy, you feel like I pay without saying what I buy. It's crazy. It's like, this is a country of tall people. And sometimes it scares me a bit to be like this little woman on a low stage with so many people in the room. But what I do then is that I'm telling to myself in a mirror or just in my head, just before going on stage, remember that you like these stories and you enjoy being there and you enjoy yourself. And that kind of saves me, kind of being like in my head thinking, okay, no noise. Continue. These are good stories. Perhaps there's someone here smiling inside.
Yeah, that's a great one. I usually go back to Tallinn before stage. I just read the reviews because I'm like, okay, this, as you said, like you need to tell yourself, this is this. Yeah. People love this. This is good stuff. Hey, why are you doubting yourself? You know, like, hey, do this again. You've done it like so many times. So, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I can try, but I really I never finished being scared of the good way of entering a stage. I'm still a bit scared, even though that's what I love the most.
But I think it's good fear. By the way, like you said, like sometimes like, you know, people can be like maybe on their phone or talking person next to each other. Sometimes if I decide to be a bit like strict, if I see someone on the phone, I just stop my talk and I stare at that person. And then people start to stare, I stare, and suddenly you have 200 or 300 people staring at this person in the audience. And they look up and they're like, whoa. And I'm saying, hey, thanks for sharing this on Instagram. Remember to tag me. Okay, let's go. And after that, nobody is on the phone. To the final here, some speakers like worry that humor will reduce their authority. How do you keep credibility while adding humor?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I do agree. And I was very scared about this at the beginning. I think if the quality of the content is high, then you should not be afraid of that. In a way, there is this trilogy. I don't know if you heard this, Max, but I think you have it already. But this is strategy of like having a good content. And that requires obviously work. I'm talking about both what you say, how you say it, and also perhaps the quality of your slides if you use PowerPoint or Canvas or whatever it is. There is a quality of you telling the stories. How do you bring your voice, your look, your body language? What does it say? And there is also the quality of connecting with the audience. And sometimes just like not avoiding eye contact or asking a funny question at the beginning of the talk. Who here has ever experienced this and that? It could be like, we have one colleague called Vigdis. She has a very good entry. It's very simple. She just asks for age groups. Who is in the audience? Do we have Gen Z? Do we have Gen Y? I found it very clever because it's just a way of engaging. And then she has already solved that part of the trilogy where people are already connected with her. Plus it's cute because she asks, do we have boomers in the audience? And then some people are like, oh, look at them. There are two of them and everybody's turning back. And that's quite a cute moment to start the talk. So it doesn't need, you don't need to do like crazy stuff to make people smile and talk to their heart. To these people being a bit skeptic, I would say that just be yourself and a little joke or two can just lighten up at the end. And make people going out with a good laugh is always a plus. As long as you've done your job from before, you've always been convinced that you are competent about what you talk about.
So to give final advice to speakers, let's imagine it's beginner speakers, they're working on their first talk, or there's a speaker who's been doing this for 50 or 100 times. If you could give one advice to speakers to add more humor to their talk, what would that be?
I would come back to this reflection about where do you need to have a bit more fun yourself to re-energize yourself on stage. Use humor as a tool, not only for the audience, but for yourself. If there's a part in the talk where you feel like it's a bit heavy or a bit dry, how can you just flip one surprising element or one just cute element or one just funny element that will make everybody laugh and reset with you for the rest of the talk? I would use humor as a tool. Not only it's not about being cool. It's just about like connecting with the audience and make them remember you.
Cool. Okay, so thank you so much for this. This is a great session about adding humor. And yeah, thanks for coming. I can't wait to see you live soon.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe I see you at the winter party of Tallinn.
Yes, probably.
Okay.
Hey, I hope you liked this episode. If you are a speaker and you already have paid gigs, but you want more, bigger stages and more consistency in the amount of bookings, we work one-on-one with speakers to help them get more gigs and increase their sales. Check out Become a Speaker NO in the link below. If you're just starting out or you have had a few gigs and you want to really become a successful public speaker, check out our 8-week bootcamp. Here, we help speakers create their speaker reel, website, positioning, beautiful presentation with amazing slides, storyline, and also land that first big paid speaking gig. check out the 8-week program below. And I'm always excited to work with passionate speakers who have a very interesting story and valuable advice to share.